Well, welcome guys to Social Church Live. I am pumped to have Darren Lee with us. He is from River Valley Church. Darren, how you doing today, man?
Great. It's so great to be with you. Excited to kind of talk about whatever we want to cover today, and just excited to be with you guys.
Yeah, we're going to swerve all over the church communications and social media map here for a second. While people are jumping on, why don't you tell us a little bit about a couple things? One, River Valley Church. Like, give us a
Yep.
little insight into your guys' church, and then you've got a church conference coming up, which is
Right.
super cool. Like here in just a little bit, there's still a little bit of space if people want to
Yep.
jump on. So why don't you tell us about those two things as people are joining us? And if you're joining us live, why don't you tell us where you're joining us as well, where Darren kind of gives us context of his church.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. So River Valley Church is a multi-site church based in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, Minnesota. We are about to open our ninth campus here in the area, and we're about 23, 24 years old. And so it's a really fun story. There's kind of first 10 years of just kind of grinding and building, and then just the last 10, 12 years going multi-site. And as I'm sure a lot of churches have that story, but it's just a lot of fun, and it's a great church to be a part of. And I've been here for a couple of years now, about 2.5 years, and it's just a really fun team. A lot of great things that God's doing here. And one of the fun things that we've been able to do in the last about 3 years is start a River Valley network. And that's just a way that we can resource churches that we have a relationship with and we want to stay connected with. And so we do that through monthly leader casts, and we do that through resourcing. And you can find that. You can find River Valley Network. Check it out if you're interested. But another thing we do as part of that is River Valley Conference. And that is next week, Monday and Tuesday. You can still register at rivervalleyconference.com. And it really is a church conference. It's designed for church leaders. We have a creative track. We've got we have a leadership track. We talk about generosity and building that in your church, and there's all kinds of things you can be a part of. So it's a fun conference. It's a lot of people that are like-minded. They're kind of you're in this together. One of those feelings.
Yeah.
And I promise it's Minnesota and it's May, and I promise you it's beautiful outside. And so there's still time to make it up here, and just want to invite you, if that's something you're interested in, check it out. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I love it. And I told you we're going to swerve all over the map. And my first kind of curveball to you, I didn't realize you guys have 9 locations now. So I'm curious, anything that's been a big aha moment in kind of the church communications leadership arena when it comes to multi-site? Because I know we have a ton of churches that are thinking about launching new locations, campuses, or merging. That seems like it's happening all over the place. So anything, a huge aha moment for you that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I would say I've been in ministry now for close to 14 or 15 years. And for the first chunk of that, I was not in a multi-site setting. And when you come into a multi-site church, there's a lot you learn very quickly. And I think one of the big things is that there is no single model for multi-site. And so I think it's one of those things that you need to learn from your peers and learn from people that are out there doing it every day. But it truly is a thing that you have to contextualize, probably more so than almost anything else that I learned in the communications world. A lot of those tools you can just take and apply. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, of things that you need to kind of understand about your own team. But in the multi-site world, we have, so right now we have 8 locations. The 9th will open in just a couple months here. And we've got everything from an urban, very urban, like, it's a younger crowd and it's right downtown Minneapolis, to our original multi-site location was in a small town in southern Minnesota. And so we've got the full range, and they're about an hour drive apart. And in an hour, you go from downtown Minneapolis to cornfields easily. So, there's a big range. And so you really do have to understand that every community does have some unique things about it. And I think at the same time, you're always balancing how close are we on brand? How close are we to that shared experience, while still not just setting aside that, well, they're a different community. And what are some unique things we can take advantage of in that community that would reach them more effectively? So I think that's one of the first things you learn about multi-site, is that there's not really one way to do it. And don't fight that. Don't feel like, if you're a systems person, sometimes you just want to rest in that system. And I think this is one you gotta find the nuance, and you just gotta constantly be learning about new ways to reach those communities.
Man, that's really good. Another curveball question, right? Following up on that, because we're broadcasting this live in the Church Marketers Facebook group, and one of the questions we get a ton, whether it's launching a new campus or a church is moving locations, so they're going into a different location or different building, or going from portable to a permanent location. What would you say is maybe one great way that you guys have used to get the word out about your new location? Because churches are always wanting to know, like, what really works in marketing, whether it's launching a new campus location or moving locations, when they're trying to get the word out. We see that question over and over and over again. What is one really good way we can help spread the word that this is happening?
Yeah, I think there's some really great models. I'll share a little bit about what I've learned, but there's churches that I'm sure some of our viewers are familiar with. You look at how the For Gwinnett campaign, if you're not familiar with that, Gwinnett Church, that was part of the North Point group of churches. If you haven't looked that up, find that. There's some podcasts out there about it. Essentially, they went out and said, we're going to start a church, and we're going to put it in this community, and we're not going to put up a billboard that says a church is coming. We're just going to put up the words For Gwinnett. And they have built a whole campaign around, we're for this city. That's why we're coming. We're building, and I applaud that. I think it's brilliant, and I've seen a lot of churches adopt it. We've adopted it in when we launch a new campus. And I think when you're coming into a new community, one or two quick thoughts on that. One, I think your messaging has to be for the community, not so much for yourself. Wow. We're really good at talking about why we're the silver bullet, and we're going to change your life. And there's a place for that, but I think people are craving something a little differently. And I think, or a little different, excuse me. I think when you're coming into a new community, you have to position or adding value to that community. You're not just selling a new thing or a new service. And so I think that's one way. From a philosophical approach. From a very practical approach, I'm a big believer in energize your base. Energize your base. Give them the tools they need. So make media available that they can share. Make, if you can afford it, do apparel and different kinds of swag. How can they own where you're going and be a part of that? And again, not from a hit you on the head, try to sell you the blender kind of marketing, but more from we're for this community and we're going to make it. So I really believe you can do all kinds of different marketing, and you can probably find statistics where that's effective. But I do think energizing your base is first and foremost what you have to do. You got to support them. You got to give them resources. Who's interested? Who's already in that community that's part of your church? How can you bring them in the process? How can you share information with them? How can you inspire them to own that community with you? And then it's less about what you're putting on a billboard, and it's more about what's in their hearts and what God is doing in that community.
Man, I love that. That is so good. And getting down to the next level, underneath that marketing, I noticed you're doing a session on social media coming up at the conference that you guys are hosting. And so I'm curious, one of the things that I know you're going to be talking about is how you engage your community on social media. So, and I know that could even kind of fit under that umbrella of launching a new campus or new location, but also from the day to day, even if a church isn't launching a new location, there's a lot of people that will be watching live or watching on the replay that are like, hey, I need like one good tip to help me engage people more or reach out into the community. What would you say? Can you give us one tip maybe from the session you're going to be talking about on how we could do that?
Yeah, if I can do so, I'll give you one quick tip and one real quick story. So it's Minnesota, and pretty much a month ago right now, so we had crazy snowstorm, mid-April, just absolutely nuts, 18 inches of snow, ridiculous. If you're not from here, even that's crazy for Minnesota in the mid-April. And we had to close church for the weekend. We've never done that in almost 25 years. We've never done that. And instead of let's close up shop and just everyone have, whatever, we took advantage of that. And we said, how can we make this, how can we maximize this? How can we, win the weekend? And we went from church being run by production people and that sort of thing to social media took over, and we just called it River Valley Snow Day. And we put the message online, and you can find it on our social media if you're curious. And we did the goofiest little contest. We said, hey, show us. So we ended up live streaming the service. And we said, show us just the craziest way that you're part of River Valley during River Valley Snow Day. And so people did all kinds of fun stuff. They went out in the streets and they were watching their iPads, and we said, whoever is the funniest, whoever's the craziest, because you're snowed in, we're gonna send you dinner. We're gonna deliver dinner to your house to just stay in for the snow day. And these guys, you'll see the winner if you go on our social media. These guys took a couch and put it in the middle of a snowy street. They were out there in their shorts and hats, eating food and drinking coffee with a TV set in the middle, and they were watching River Valley and Part of Us. And I think it's just super fun, right? And I think part of that is we could have pushed all kinds of different ways, but instead we just seeded an idea and the post took off. The community took off. And I think it's one of those things that when you engage your community, if you can find those little things, and that could have failed too. We're always learning, right? But I think what we saw is people wanted to sort of co-create an experience with you. They want to be part of it. And I think you have to give them opportunity to do that. And the last thing I'll say to that is just add value. This is a tip that someone gave me years ago. If just percentage wise, look at your posting schedule. If you're not adding value 80% of the time, 4 out of 5 times, if you're not just adding value, you need to do that. So 1 out of 5, ask something of them. The other 4, add value to your followers' life. And that you will gain followers, you will gain engagement as a result of that. So add value and have some fun and let them co-create with you is just some tips I'd throw in there.
Man, that is so good. And I'm picking up a theme that your church is all about adding value. Even your marketing is all about it's your audience first. It's going on this fun journey with people. It's being for the community. So you're really wanting something for people as opposed to the church always being asking something from people. And that seems like it's permeating everything that you're talking about. So I love that. Do you think that, churches feel like we can't have fun on social? Do you feel like sometimes just loosening up and getting creative and trying new things is a great way to just spur on that engagement? What thoughts on
absolutely. That? Yeah, I would say comedy in general, or just fun in general. There's a lot of risk in it. It's a vulnerable thing to do. And so if you're a social media manager or you're someone who's a comm director who's making those posts happen, if it's not natural for you and it's not your voice, it's really risky, because if you're not good at it, that's a hard place to be. But even if you start putting some of that fun out there, to your question, I think we have to loosen up a little bit more. I think if we want to engage it, you think of like around and people you want to be around, you want to have a good time. You want to have someone who's a good storyteller, who's funny, who keeps you engaged. And I think our social media channels can do that. And I'll say, this is something we're learning all the time, that we look at some of the things that are the most engaging on social media and they surprise us sometimes. We think, hey, this is going to be it. This is a great post. And it just falls flat. And then something that's just as goofy as the guys in the snowstorm in the street was our highest engaged post of all time. It was just crazy. And I think it was a buildup, it was a campaign, and I think it was a fun campaign that people want to be a part of. And so to your question, absolutely, we got to have more fun. And but at the same time, comedy is risky. So it just has to feel like you. If it doesn't feel like you, it's going to come off weird, and weird isn't good. So you just got it's a fine line, but have more fun for sure. Loosen up.
I love it. And the other theme I'm hearing too is this idea of empowering your people. And I think that's crucial on your marketing social front, because if you want to reach into your community, one of the great ways is by leveraging the connections that your people have. So by doing that campaign and seeding the idea, and when your people started doing those creative things, I'm assuming that's what kind of made it get so much engagement from their peers as well, right? That was kind of the big difference maker.
Yeah, because now we're not the ones creating the content. We've just seeded the idea, and now you've got other people creating content. And there's times when people can repost your content, which is really good. That's always a good thing, right? When someone reposts it. But it's even better when someone is, they're affirming you without you having to tell them to do it. That's gold, especially in social media. That's gold. And so now they're taking idea, and now it's funny and engaging, and so their followers see it, and it just takes off. And so it's Yeah, it's just about empowering them, and then kind of creating that space, which to your point earlier, if your accounts aren't doing that right now, that might feel like out of left field. What's going on? So you have to, over time, you got to build, Seth Godin talks about that permission-based marketing, that you have to build a relationship over time so that when you do that fun thing, it's not totally crazy. It's kind of like, oh, I get it. I'm in. Let's do this, So it's a relationship thing for sure.
I love it. And a couple things. Speaking of that relationship deal, two things I want to ask of you guys watching live and then also watching on the replay is, one, what has been your biggest social media post that you've ever done? I love it. I think that'd be an interesting topic for churches to say, hey, this was ours. Because I think you can pick up on some themes there. For us, Summit Park Church, it was a snow day as well. So I think one of the things that was interesting there is because since everybody's snowed in, you really have like a captive city, right? So everybody's on social media. So that's a huge time. Anytime you have attention and you can get attention, that's a big aha moment. And then a friend here, Timothy Flick, is actually going to be up at your church on Saturday. So
that's great. Awesome.
Timothy is a part of Summit Park Church here. We're both big Sporting Kansas City fans, and I think Sporting is playing Minnesota this weekend. So I think that's what brings him up there. So go Sporting Kansas City. So
that's great.
Anyway, but you may see Timothy. He's a great guy. So anyway, I'd be curious. We'll look at the responses coming in here, but I want to take another right turn. I told you guys we'd be all over the map here, and Darren, thank you for being gracious enough to just flow with this. But Darren, we posted your article up on Church Marketing University. The article is probably geared to maybe churches that are a little bit larger. Because you're talking about communication requests, and specifically the title of it is "Kill the Communication Request Form." And this would be another topic we get a ton of questions about, especially as a church gets larger and you have all these ministries and all the ministries want things and everybody's requesting everything under the sun. And you have a unique take and kind of a step-by-step in that article. And if you're interested, I'll post a link below that you guys can go check out that article. But what would be one major insight in that? Because that's an interesting title, right? It's kind of a catchy. Why should you kill it? Because everybody's talking about how you do it the right way. But why would you take that approach?
Yeah, so I would just sum it up at this: relationship trumps process every time. So relationship trumps process. And what I mean by that is I think particularly with church communicators, if you have this beautifully designed form right now and you're thinking, how can I not use that form? I think a lot of times we outsource relationship to an administrative process, and we use it almost as like a moat around our castle that, well, you have to go, you got to come a very specific way through our process or we're not going to deal with it. And I just think even the best designed process, and I just want to share that I think I shared in the article that I have written, you name it, what kind of process I've written it. I came from an executive pastor world, and I've probably written a process around everything. But the weird thing about processes, even the best designed ones, at some point, there's still nuance to them. And oftentimes, almost every time, it's around relationship. And so even the best designed process, if you request something, you don't have to do these 4 things. Don't worry about those things. Or if you request things, actually, we have to do another form because we need to know more, and so rarely is the process perfect. And I think that's something we could probably just set aside. We're never gonna make a perfect process or a perfect form. And so for me, it came out of a time where I've done a lot of that. And I just said, you know what? We have to focus on relationship first. And I just want to say, if you've got a form, if you're a one-man band or a one-woman band out there who's like, I need that thing, I am not in any way saying there isn't value or a place for a great, process or form. I'm a process guy. But what I'm saying is, I think if you're leading with that, I have seen so many people, particularly in church communications, that have failed in their own leadership or own creative leadership because they're relying on a process and they're ignoring the people around them. Wow. I've heard it story after story of communications people who are poor communicators. And it just doesn't add up for me. And so that was why I said, you know what, we're going to change this. So we're going to change the whole process. And I don't know how much you want to get into it, but we're going to turn it on its head, and we're going to focus on people and relationships first. We're going to be learners. We're going to ask good questions. We're going to identify the problem clearly before we decide how to solve it. And a lot of times, I think I mentioned that, like, it's like Amazon, right? You fill out a form and you want your whatever 2 days later, or sometimes if you're in a city, you want it 2 hours later, and you don't care who delivers it. You don't care what they look like or what their story is. You fill out a form and you want it. And I feel like that's sometimes what our forums internally do. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that for me. I didn't want it for a team. I didn't want it for a church. I wanted to build a culture where we're going to have relationships, we're going to have conversations, and we're going to have shared solutions that we own together. So that's kind of where that came from, and a little bit of the overview of it.
I love it. And Christy's mentioned, love that. Very interesting. Can't wait to hear more about this. So what we'll do on that front, because I know our time is running short here, I'll post that article in the Church Marketers group. That way you guys can really read through the step-by-step, kind of get the heart of what Darren's recommending. And then I think it'd be fascinating to have a dialogue on that, because I agree with you. Yeah. I'm coming from a very similar background at James River Church. That whole process of project request world and how you do that, how you pull that off. I love your emphasis on relationship first. That makes a huge difference. And I think if you are in that communications world, the stuff Darren's talking about, I think will really, really help you. So why don't we do that? Why don't we post that? And then we'll kind of do that dialogue and carry that conversation on, because I know that's a kind of a sliver of our audience. Yeah. A lot of our churches, maybe under 200, and they're like, we don't even have a communications, person type deal. So I think that would be cool to do that. I also want to circle back around. There's a couple comments coming in about the highest performing social posts. One was saying pastors at a local high school game was our biggest social media post. Another one was saying the live stream of their children's Easter egg hunt. So I think if we continue to get those responses, I think the one thing that we'll see is a lot of these posts are related around fun, something outside the box, outside the norm. It's probably less, church focused. Hey, here's what we're doing, and more like audience focused, community focused. So hopefully for you guys watching live, watching the replay, that's another big aha moment where you're saying, wow, social media is really about people, relationships, the community, not necessarily focused on the church. If you really want to engage your community, put your community first. So I find those kind of comments fascinating as well. So one last thing I wanted to mention, because again, we're swerving, man. This is probably been the most schizophrenic interview I've ever done. So I applaud you for doing this. But we just launched our guest gift guide. It's basically our research project that we wanted to ask churches that were doing hospitality really, really well. Like, what are the gifts that you're giving away to your visitors? And what does that process look like? Where do you get those gifts? How do you give it away? What's your strategy? So River Valley Church was one of the churches that we featured in that guide. And so we emailed that actually out to our audience this morning. But I wanted to give you a chance. Is there any insight that you would have into the River Valley culture as it relates to guest hospitality? So I know you're in the communications world. But can you give us any insight into how you guys create a great environment for guests to connect with you guys?
Yeah. Let me give you a little quick overview on the things in the guide, and I'll just give you insight into something we're going to experiment with, and I would just encourage you to try it with us. So how's that for a tease?
I love it.
So on the gifts, that we changed the gifts up about a little over a year ago, and some of them are actually old ideas that we just refreshed, and some are that we did new. So essentially we have two separate things. So we have one track if you are deciding to follow Christ. If you're making the commitment to Christ, we want to equip you with that. And so we have a Now What pack, essentially, and it's a Bible, and we put a journal in there for your first 30 days of ways we can encourage you and you can follow along. And it's a nice, like, you can see the picture of it. It's a nice sleeve and cellophane wrap, like a package. So it feels like a retail product in a good way. And so that can be delivered at a altar experience or a welcome center, or really any pastor is equipped to deliver that. It's a very one-on-one experience. And then we also have a guest gift, a welcome home gift is what we call it.
Cool.
And we had this weird thing where we were trying to deliver music, and actually this is going to change, but we like where it is, but it's got to change because no one listens to CDs anymore. We know that. But we were in a position where we wanted to deliver a variety of music. Our main teams write music, our youth teams, and our kids. We have separate albums and products for all of them. And so we wanted to deliver a sampler of 6 of them. And we wanted to deliver a lot of vision language and just good information you need to know. So we had all kinds of different ways we were going to do it. And I said, why don't we just make the CD case? So like a little, cardboard digipack kind of thing. Why don't we just make that the gift? And so that's what we ended up doing. And we gave it to everyone on Easter weekends. We have a lot of guests, and just kind of saturate the market. Everyone got one. Wow. And then we just continue it as a guest gift that can be delivered a variety of different ways. But because of the CD, we're kind of rethinking that and saying, okay, well, how can we think differently around that and still deliver that information in a clean package that you don't want to do too small, but you don't want to do too big. And so that was a nice in between. Pretty much anyone can just throw that on whatever they got and throw it in your purse or grab it. So that's that. One thing around hospitality that I mentioned, just kind of the teaser, is we are right now building a new campus. And one of the ideas that we have that I've been wanting to try for a long time, and I'm kind of excited at new campus we can do it, is eliminate whatever you call it, your connection center, welcome center, whatever. I don't know what you would call it in your church, but that essentially the place, the desk, where everyone goes. So we want to eliminate that entirely. And we want to just create maybe some physical space, but not what you'd think, a counter. And we want to get people out there working it almost like a retail experience. So have people who are mingling, who are hosts of that space, who are seeking out guests, who are trained at how to read that. We've all had greeters who are not well trained, and they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like either way, either they're way too aggressive, or if you're in Minnesota, everyone is like, they just want to kind of go their way. So either too aggressive or not aggressive enough. And so at this campus, we're going to test it. We're going to test what would it be like if there wasn't a central place to go to for your information. Instead, we're going to create a mobile-friendly web page or app or something where everyone who's a host, they can bring up their own app on their own phone. And hey, if you got a question about a life team or a life group or a global team coming up, I can tell you right about it. I can get you registered for it right here. Similar to what you might experience in an Apple or something like that. But just kind of, we're testing the idea of what if we flipped, hospitality on its head, and we got a little more personal with it, and not so much come to us or find us, but we went and found you. So kind of a fun experiment we're trying.
Very interesting. So will that kind of be like in my head, I envision like an Apple store mashed with a coffee shop with really nice people, like just mingling. Am I in the right ballpark? Okay.
Yeah, even give them like a shirt to wear and everything. So from stage, you can just say, hey, fine. We do this at conferences all the time. We're going to do it on next week. Hey, if you've got a question, find someone in a River Valley Conference shirt. If you've got a question, go find someone in a blue shirt. They're ready to help you. We want to kind of use that experience and just experiment with it and try to make it friendly, not too aggressive. You got to ride that line. But we want to make it less of that physical barrier that often exists in these welcome centers where you've got to come up to a desk, and it's almost like a hotel experience. Like I'm coming, there's a transaction that happens instead of like a relational connect. Yeah. And so it might fall flat, but we're going to try it. We want to always be innovating, always be learning. And we feel pretty confident that it's going to work, and we're excited to try it. So, man,
I love that idea. You're going to have to circle back around and let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
I think the relationship first, and what I'm hearing in everything that you guys are doing and stressing, I think that's brilliant. It feels like to me, anytime I've been involved in that type of dynamic, like I'm always coaching people to get out from behind the booth, not necessarily in the church world, but in business world, and get in front and just hang out with people. And it's night and day different. So it seems to make sense that your idea would work in the church world, where it's like people first, relationship first, create that environment. So man, I'm cheering you on. I think you're on to something. I wanted to follow up. You mentioned moving away from the CD, which I love your guys' music, by the way.
Thank you.
I didn't realize you guys have it for kids as well. So I'm going to have to go track that down, where I'm always serving back in the kids area. So I'd love to see what that is all about. So I've got some homework to do. But what are you guys doing moving away from CD? Like, how are you going to package that? Are you going to do like a USB type printout, or what are you going to do?
You know, we've done a variety of different ways. I think part of the challenge here, and this is a bigger conversation, but part of the challenge is around, you know, you're always debating digital or print, what's more effective. And I actually think we're in an era now where print was kind of dying, and it's come back in a really strong way the last 2 or 3 years, because holding something physical is still a powerful experience. And you can't deny that. Like when you have it in your hand and we send you away with it, at least for a moment, it was in your hand, right? And there's a chance, you know, with it being digital, it sometimes just goes away, right? It's just gone. And so we're not quite sure. I don't know the USB is the right choice. You know, it might just be a physical thing with a download link, you know, a scratch off or something, or a URL where you can go listen to it. You know, we haven't solved that problem yet. But for now, it's working, and people like the gift. And once you invest in something, you want to stick with it for a little while to, you know, understand, is it what's working and why is it working, or what's not working and why it's not. But we've delivered it through our app before. We'll have it on there for, you know, a month or something. You can listen to it, or we'll keep a sampler in there. We prefer you go through other channels, go through Spotify, because now it's shareable, or you go through other things. So we want to keep them in the channels they're already using, but point them to that in a you know, kind way. So we'll figure that one out. But for now, we're just going to keep with it, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
I love it. It might be some sort of genius way you can use a QR code. And I kind of say that jokingly, because I feel like
back.
Yeah, I know. I feel like in the church space, we've desperately, we've fought and clawed. Can we use the QR code? So anyway, I kind of throw that out there, but I feel like we're always treading that and be like, there has to be some way, some genius way.
We do a lot of text to campaigns. You know, we text to giving or text to sign up for something. That might be a way to do it. You know, as a marketer, you're always wearing the hat of, I need to know who engaged with that content. Because if I don't know, then I can't continue to talk to them. And so if you create a digital, some sort of experience where you do that, now we would know that, hey, you came and you did text in, you know, whatever number to get that album for free. So now we know that. Now we can talk to you about that. So yeah, it may be something like that. Maybe a QR code, maybe a text to. I feel like you just always have to be agile with that, and you just got to read where things are going and be ahead. You know, try your best to stay ahead of that curve. So
I also loved your note of print making a comeback. I feel like when something gets oversaturated to the point that everybody swings away from it, that's the time to kind of jump back in and it kind of revitalize it, and can really mean a lot to your audience. So I'm going to throw one question out at you, and then we'll let you get back there, and because I know you've got a busy week. But Bethany was asking relative to kind of your hospitality idea about the older congregation who may not have their phones with them. Did I understand you right? It's more the volunteer that's doing the digital work? Okay.
Yeah, so two quick things on that. Great question, Bethany. I appreciate that. Two quick things on that. One would be, we just don't want to have a physical, permanent welcome center or welcome desk. So one example would be some sort of nice piece of furniture that's portable. So that if for an event or something we wanted to put it away, we could. So I'm sure a lot of churches have something like that. And then you can also change up where you put it. So I still envision, you mentioned kind of coming around and standing next to you as we're solving whatever challenge you have. So I still envision places that you need that. People need a cup in their hand to feel comfortable. They need a table to lean on to have a conversation. That's just how we're wired. So there's still a physical place. But then in terms of the technology, that would be the volunteers, exactly. That they would all be equipped with, we would make a specific web page that's just specifically for mobile that you could just use to quickly find FAQs, essentially. And then, we surprisingly, your comment about print, we have found sometimes the best way to get someone signed up is just put a piece of paper in front of them and get it signed. So, but that's the concept, is work the room, have a place, but it will not be permanent. It'd be something we could change up where it is depending on how we're using the space. So hopefully that answers your question. Absolutely. We have a wide range of ages and backgrounds, and you got to be sensitive to that for sure.
Yeah, I love it, man. I think you're onto something. It'll be fascinating to see how that goes. So, man, Darren, thank you so much for spending this time with our audience. Again, if you want more information about Darren, I encourage you to just search the River Valley Church Conference, because that's a great opportunity to jump in, especially if you're already up in the north and you can get to that conference here coming up. Where's another good place if they want to connect with you to get more about you? Is it Instagram, Twitter? Is it all the above?
Anything. You just look for Darren W. Lee. You'll find me on any social channel, or find River Valley MN if you want to follow us. We'd love to have you. And we want to learn from you too. I think that's one of the things I just appreciate, that you have worked so hard to put communities like this together, where we can learn from each other. I have benefited so much from connecting with other people. And so don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of the email. Don't be afraid of the text or the reaching out via social. Everyone is learning together. So let's do this together, really. So I just appreciate the opportunity to share with you today. And if you're coming up to the conference, let me know. I'd love to meet you and get you a cup of coffee and get to know you a little bit. So
I love it. Well, thank you so much. After we hit in broadcast here, I'll be sure to put links to the conference. Anything we've mentioned, the conference, the guest gift guide, your music, apparently kids music, which I'm going to go find out. I'll throw all those links. I'll even put your Instagram and Twitter so you guys can reach out to him as well. That way, Timothy Flick, you can connect with him while you're up there.
Yeah.
But thanks so much. And let's do this again when you've got an update for us, because this was really awesome. Thanks so much.